Welcome to our spring workshop titled Conflict Management for Women, Skills, Strategies, and Solutions. I'm Dr. Susan Madsen, Founding Director of the Utah Women in Leadership Project, and also the Karen Haight Huntsman, Endowed Professor of Leadership in the John M. Huntsman School of Business at Utah State University. And I'm the host and convener of the workshop today. This event furthers the mission of the Utah Women in Leadership Project, which is to strengthen the impact of Utah girls and women. And we serve Utah and its residents by first producing relevant, trustworthy, and applicable research. Second, creating and gathering valuable resources. And third, convening trainings and events that inform, inspire, and ignite growth and change for all Utahns. And I would love to thank our sponsors, the Utah Education Network, UEN, the John M. Huntsman School of Business, and USU Extension for making this event possible. I'm excited to introduce you to the two facilitators, presenters today. Clair Canfield first is a senior lecturer at Utah State University and has over 20 years of experience teaching, training, and consulting in the field of communication and conflict. He's a certified mediator and is deeply committed to helping people transform the way that they approach conflict. His 2016 TEDx talk, which has been viewed over 300,000 times, describes how conflict has the potential to be beautiful. When he isn't talking about his passion for conflict, you can find Clair riding his motorcycle through the canyons of northern Utah near his home in Perry, or enjoying time with his spouse and 3 children. Carlee Madsen is no stranger to conflict. She spent many years of her life as a chronic conflict avoider and accommodator in many of her personal and professional relationships. She has devoted thousands of hours embracing the idea that there is beauty in conflict, and doing so has transformed her life and relationships. Carlee has a master's degree in professional communication and other degrees and certificates in mediation, psychology, leadership, and conflict management. She is currently teaching conflict classes for the Communication Studies Department at Utah State University. So welcome to both of you. For those listening in, there will be time here and there during and at the end of the workshop for questions from all of you. So submit your questions anytime in the chat or in the Q&A, and we'll be watching and working those in. So thank you so much, both of you, for being here today. I'm going to turn off my camera, but I'll be here and I'll be watching the chat and questions, and would love to turn it over to both of you. Thanks so much.
Great, thank you, Susan. That's awesome. Boy, Claire, that made us sound really good, didn't it?
I know.
Man, our background
say
really
thank you.
Well, welcome everyone. We are thrilled and honored that you're here. Claire and I have been teaching public speaking for a long time, or we've taught it before, and we know that it takes a lot of commitment and a lot of energy for you as audience members to show up and to hear us and be willing to learn. And so we're just honored that we have the chance to share with you some of the things that we've learned over our lifetime, and especially in the last 5 years, that might help you navigate your conflicts a little bit better. So Claire and I, we met 5 years ago when I was doing my master's program, and Claire was my teacher, professor, and advisor in my master's program. And ever since he and I met 5 years ago, we both just have discovered and developed and deepened this passion that we have for conflict and doing conflict differently. Doing it in a way that allows us to get what we really want in our relationships. And because Claire and I, we've definitely had our struggles with conflicts. We have had conflicts where our needs weren't being met and where we weren't having the peace and connection that we were hoping to get in our relationships. And so in that time that we've spent together, we've developed a lot of skills and a lot of new language that we hope we might be able to share with you today. And we wonder if some of the reasons why you have come is that you are also experiencing conflicts in your life that you would like to do differently, that you're not getting what you want potentially in your relationships or in the work that you're doing, and that you're getting stuck or frustrated or feeling a lot of emotions surrounding people who are important to you, or subjects that are important to you, or values that are important to you, that you're not able to quite navigate through as you experience conflict there. And so we're just glad you're here. And we hope today we can facilitate just a great conversation and some learning that can give you hope that conflict can be incredibly beautiful and a place where we can go to reground in ourselves and then develop ourselves and really make a change in the world around us. So we want to get to know you a little bit, and how we're going to do this is through a platform called Mentimeter. So let me share this on our screen. Get this up. So what we would invite all of you to do is, now Claire, can you see this on the screen? I'm hoping everyone can see on the screen. All right.
So they can either open up another window in their chat, or if they want to use their phone, you can also access this through, phone's web browser.
Phones and web browser. Great, thank you. Claire has used this platform before. This is my first time, so hopefully he's here to mentor me as well. So at the top, you'll see a link, or you'll see a website. You can go to menti, MENTI.com, and then use the code that's at the top. So 74798961. And this is just kind of a question to get us started. So what show, you had a free day, free weekend, all your chores are done, and you just want to relax and chill out to a show. I know we didn't offer a ton here, ton of options, but if you had to choose between these, we just kind of want to see where we are with everyone around the world.
No, I'm not supposed to be invested in this, but I'm so, I feel like I'm watching a race. Like, go Office, go. You're in the lead.
Yeah. So which one would be yours, Claire?
The Office.
Yeah.
Yeah. Although Lord of the Rings, like, I will binge that at least once a year. Extended versions all day long. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. This is good. So we're up around 200 participants are happening here. About 213, 215. And it looks like The Office is winning. Awesome. Okay, that looks really solid. All right, well, so what Menti is going to provide us today is an opportunity for you to engage with our presentation. Claire and I are teachers at heart, and we want you to feel really engaged as participants. And then this part also helps us to get to know you a little bit as an audience. So we can't really see you, and so, or hear you, or be in your presence. And so this is a way for us to potentially get to know you a little bit more. So let's go on to our next question. I'm going to say that The Office won, which is great. Yes. I think but Harry, I mean, all really good. Back to the Future was winners. my personal favorite. All right. Let's see, how do I advance? There we go. All right. So this presentation was specifically for women, but I would love to see who we have out there that's joining us. We welcome anyone and everyone to come and explore what's happening here. Good. I don't think this is too surprising. I think this is a little bit of what we were anticipating. We got a few others. Comment, where's all the men? This is great. Okay, yeah, good. So mostly women, but we've got a big handful, we've got a small handful of some others as well. They're not bothered by conflict. That's funny. That's cute. That's really, really good. Awesome. Okay, great. Well, let's head to our next one. If I can move forward. So then we're also just wanting to know who we got today. Ooh, these ones are coming in fast. Claire, I think your age group's winning. Hate to throw you under the bus there and say what your age is.
Let's pretend though that I'm on the lower end of the spectrum. Yeah, I'm fresh into my 40s. Awesome.
Okay, this is looking good. Okay, awesome. So these were some fun demographics for us to potentially get to know you a little bit, get a bit more, see who you are. So now our next question, we want you to take a moment and just reflect on, I could advance here, on where you are right now in your conflicts and in your relationships. So what are some of the conflicts that you're experiencing. Claire and I, when we teach with students, I mean, we've had almost everything that's been brought to us with conflicts for people, but just wondering, what are some of the conflicts that you're facing right now? Who are they with? What are they about? Lots of workplace conflict.
Yeah.
It's like workplace, it's all kind of surrounding workplace, family, work.
Those are a couple of pretty dominant contexts for a lot of people's conflict. It's happening at home, it's happening at work.
Which makes sense because that's where we spend a lot of our time.
Mhm.
I'm also seeing family, but also words that are connected with family: spouse, children, husband, politics, children, leadership. Boy, this is fun to watch. Pretty incredible.
Kind of transfixed by it.
Yeah. This is really great. Well, as these are continuing to come in, you know, Claire and I, as we've taught and as we've experienced conflict in our own lives, we recognize that these things that you're putting up here on the screen are things that potentially you really care about, that they're things that are very real. They are places, people, values, systems that you really care about. And that if you're having conflict there or rumbling that's happening, that can be very real, that it can be very painful, and that it can be very difficult. And sometimes it can feel overwhelming and confusing and uncertain. And so we just want to recognize and just honor that all of these places are important, and that those places are real, and that in these places where we're having conflicts, that it really can affect how we show up at work and how we do our work. It can also affect our physical health, right? If we're holding on to conflicts, if we're holding on to those emotions, it can begin to really affect our physical health. And we also know that conflicts, when they go unresolved, can really have a large impact on our mental well-being. And so so today, how we want to combat all of that. I'm going to stop screen share here for just a minute. And so today we want to be able to provide you some very applicable skills that you can take from this training and start applying to your conflicts right away. We want to freeze what's happening in a conflict, blow it up, zoom it in, and really get clear on what's happening in conflict so that we can begin to diagnose and dissect what's happening for us so that we can then approach conflict in a different way and have more change and peace and beauty from our conflicts. So that awareness piece we're going to talk about, and then we're going to do some skill building, and we're going to kind of wrap it all up at the end. So Claire, what have you done to help yourself and others gain awareness around how you're thinking and engaging in conflict?
That's a really good question, and an important one, because I think if you don't have an awareness of what's happening or what's not working for you, it's impossible to change anything about it. And what's interesting is conflict for me is about a recognition that something isn't working and we do desire some sort of change. That might be a change within ourselves or within our relationship, what's happening at work or at home in our community. Like, conflict is alerting us to a desire for change, but you can't create change without awareness. And sometimes the change we need in conflict is the way we approach the conflict, right? Like the conflict itself and how we deal with it might need to change in order for us to get the change that we want, right? That if we can't do conflict differently, we'll be stuck in the same cycles or in doing things the same way. So it's been really helpful for me and for others to be reflective about how they think and feel about conflict. So for me, I don't think I gave a lot of thought to this, and I didn't have a lot of awareness until college, really. My second year into college and taking a class where we started learning about conflict. Prior to that, I don't think I really thought about it at all. I just tried to avoid it because I didn't like it. My experiences as a kid had taught me to feel about conflict a particular way and to think about it a particular way. And that was pretty heavily influenced by my dad. As I started to reflect on that, I could see that he had a pretty big influence on me because I frequently got into disagreements or conflicts with my siblings. I'm the third of 8. And apparently I'm an instigator. I didn't really see myself as that, but maybe others had a clue early on. Like when I was 6 years old, my dad he loves to garden, just loves it. It's more like small scale farming if he can help it. If there's dirt on the ground, he's going to try to grow something in it. And so he had a beehive to pollinate all of the strawberries and stuff. And one day I thought, man, I wonder what would happen if I stuck a stick in the hole and stirred it up. And what happened was just like what you think would happen. The stream of bees came out and started chasing me towards the house. And so I guess maybe I am an instigator, or at least I was as a kid. So I got into a lot of these conflicts with my siblings, and my dad's response was always to immediately put a stop to it. He did not want us fighting. So if he was anywhere around or caught wind of it, he would immediately tell us to stop. And then we would have to hug and kiss and make up. I hated that part. It's like, I'm mad at this person. Why are you making me make up with him? And then I'd get punished for fighting. Maybe it wasn't every time, but it sure felt like every time I was blamed for it. So my dad would send me out into the garden. Again, he loves gardening, to pick up a bucket full of rocks, because we lived at the base of the Rocky Mountains, Spring City, if any of you have heard of it, pretty small town in central Utah. So I would be sent out to the garden to pick up a bucket full of rocks, and then I would have to pour it over the fence into the field. And I had a monument of my conflict growing faster than I was. And that taught me, the influence that had on me, is that nothing ever good comes from conflict. I just get in trouble, and it's damaging. There are strong. So I just started to learn to avoid it. And so I would get uncomfortable even being around other people's conflicts. But of course, it got to a point in my life where I recognized I can't avoid conflict. It's impossible for me to do. Like I've tried not talking about it. I've tried pretending like I don't have conflict. I've waited around for the conflict to hopefully just go away. Right. I don't know if any of you have ever done that before, where you're like, well, maybe my neighbor will move, or the semester will end and they'll move away, or get hit by a bus. I mean, sometimes our thoughts go into dark places, but we're just hoping that somehow the conflict will just magically disappear. And of course it doesn't. And it sometimes gets worse. So it was important for me at some point to start to realize, wow, the way I think about conflict is affecting the way that I do it. So here's something that might help all of you get a sense of how you think and feel about conflict. So go to a recent one. Think about maybe a conflict that you have had not too long ago, or there might have been a significant one recently, and just put yourself in the mindset and the emotional state of that conflict. Remember some of the details of what it was like being there. Now, once you're there mentally, I want you to write a metaphor that describes or captures that experience of conflict for you. Conflict is like, and then you're going to write a metaphor or a simile, which is a type of metaphor that will help you kind of see, oh, that's how I make sense or experience conflict. Landmine, emotional sandpaper. Oh gosh, I love that. Emotional sandpaper. Such a good metaphor. Good. Now, some of you are getting some good descriptive words about your experiences with conflict, like it's stressful or it's a hindrance. So think about what would capture that stressfulness, right? A metaphor kind of compares something to unlike things, but then once we compare it, we're able to learn something about the other thing, even they're totally different. So eating broccoli when I want a cookie, which is
Good.
I can, yeah, I can relate to that. My parents told me that one time I refused to eat broccoli. I was like 5 years old. And so I held it in my mouth and they said, you have to finish your broccoli. I held it in my mouth for like over an hour, which doesn't make a lot of sense, but I was 5 years old and 5-year-olds don't make a lot of sense. So I left it in my mouth, that taste of broccoli, for an hour because I just refused to swallow it. Stomach ache, pressure cooker, speed bump, animal cornered in a cage, stuck in quicksand. Oh, these are great. Opening Pandora's box. Now, we have to recognize that every metaphor is uniquely personal. And so without specific descriptions, I can't necessarily evaluate like what each of your metaphors means. It's more important that you're able to see it. But if I were to make some guesses, being inside a boiling kettle probably is not a fun experience for most people. Like sometimes I've seen metaphors like conflict is like a roller coaster, and maybe some people love roller coasters. It's like, let's go on it again. But other people are terrified by them. Like my daughter, when we were at what's the one with the Harry Potter world, Universal Studios, and we were getting ready to go on a ride. We'd been in line for an hour and a half, and then she decided she didn't want to go anymore and starts crying. And it's like, I don't want to go on that roller coaster. So I'm going to guess that being inside a boiling kettle, most people don't like. A boat motor starting up, that's an interesting one too. So maybe it takes a lot of energy to do that, to get it going. Being tangled in barbed wire, that sounds painful. Pounding sand. So these are useful because once you create a metaphor, it cuts through some of the things that happen for us when we think about conflict, which is we understand sometimes that there's nothing inherently wrong with conflict. It's not a bad thing. In fact, we know that maybe it helps us solve our problems. We kind of cognitively know this, but when you have to write a metaphor and your metaphor is a stomach ache, well, then that tells you, even though you might cognitively understand conflict is normal or it's not necessarily a bad thing, it doesn't feel good to you. And it might be scary or make you feel sick. And once you recognize that, then that helps you understand that I can't deal with conflict differently until I think about it differently. Because one of the things that can happen for me as an educator, if I were to go in and to try and teach somebody some conflict skills that might improve the way that they interact with somebody, if they don't feel good about doing conflict, if it's scary to them, they're not going to want to use those skills. It's not going to benefit them. The thing that has to change first is the way they approach it and think about it, because the way you approach it sets the possibilities for what can happen. Similar to, I'm looking out my window. I'm in Logan, Utah today, and we're right in the middle of the time where Logan likes to play practical jokes with the weather. So it'll warm up for several days and you'll think that it's, springtime and want to go outside and take off your coat. And then we'll have snow 3 days later, and it'll be freezing cold. But right now it's really nice. So perhaps after this webinar, if I went outside onto the quad, beautiful area, and somebody's got their dog out there and they're playing Frisbee, big golden lab retriever. And I'm wondering how many of you like dogs. And I'm sure there's some of you that like them so much that even though I can't see you, you're like, yes, my hand is up. I love the dogs. I know some people just love dogs. And if somebody who was playing with their dog threw the Frisbee and it came and landed at your feet, how are you likely to interact with that dog as it approaches you? Right? Now, for some of you that love dogs, you might get down scruffle its ears, say hello. Maybe you let it lick your face, play with it a little bit. You might feel excited, joyful about that experience. However, some of you, I'm guessing, don't like dogs. If you're like my wife, who, when she was a little kid, was walking down the street with a neighbor friend, and a dog started coming towards them on the sidewalk, and my wife used her friend like a human shield to have a barrier between her and the other dog. Some of you might not like dogs. So my guess is that when the dog started approaching you and coming towards you, you didn't want to get down and say hello and interact with that dog. You might have taken the Frisbee and just chucked it as far away as you could from yourself, or started running the other direction. The change in approach that you have towards the dog changes completely the way that you can interact with it. It sets the parameters for what's possible. And in conflict, if my metaphor suggests I hate conflict, or it feels uncomfortable or scary, or I feel hopeless or lost, if those are the kind of things that your metaphor captures, then I can't just tell you, here's a skill on how to pet dogs the very best way, or here's a way to, you're just not going to want to do it. So for me, it's always been important to gain some awareness on how we feel about conflict, and then find ways to shift that so that it opens up more possibilities for how we can handle conflict. Because now that you've got your metaphor and you're thinking about how you approach conflict, let's have you answer this next question, which identifies some of the really common ways that people engage in conflict. And perhaps some of these don't totally capture your experience, but it's not uncommon, as we can see here, for people to just be avoiders. That's what I was for most of my life, is I just didn't want any part of it. So even if I knew there was a conflict, I wouldn't bring it up. Even if I knew that the other person knew, and even if I knew that they knew that I know there's a conflict, I still didn't want to talk about it. It would be the proverbial elephant in the room that we would just dance around. And it sounds like some of you do that. Others might accommodate, which is working to have the other person's needs met, right? Trying to make sure that the other person's happy. It's a very relational focused way of handling conflict, but it often has its own consequences, where people can start to feel neglected, or their needs aren't met, or it can even damage the relationship, because we might feel a sense of resentment because we never are getting what we want. For some, some compete, and there are consequences when we do that as well. Competitive people might sometimes find that even though they frequently will get what they want because they're assertive in putting their needs forth in conflict, it can damage relationships because of the way we compete. It can hurt feelings or cause other people to feel unheard or unseen. Compromising, that's unfortunately often seen as the best possible way that you can handle conflict. It's so common that people think this is the best way that I hear it given as advice at weddings. I've been to a few weddings in my day, and they give two pieces of advice pretty frequently. The number one is don't go to bed angry, which is a conflict related piece of advice. Terrible advice, by the way, just awful, right? Because when you're tired late at night, we often have less emotional bandwidth. We don't really know how to handle our emotions as well. Some of us get fussy at night. Some of us laugh at whatever, everything's funny. Some of us find that we're crying at that Sarah McLachlan commercial, with the dogs, and we're, writing a check in the middle of the night because we just are not able to manage our emotions in the same way. And so the advice we're being given is, when you feel strong emotions and you're angry and it's late at night, you should stay up and just swim in those emotions. I'm for the love of all that's good, please go to bed. Everybody go to bed, and then wake up in the morning and either you've got more capacity to deal with those emotions, or you find out that it was a result of you were tired and you don't even remember what you were upset about, right? So compromise, really, that's the second piece of advice people give. You just have to learn to compromise, but it's just an agreement where nobody gets what they want. Everybody gives up something, nobody's satisfied. And I think that it's kind of sad and worrisome that that is the best we might hope for in a relationship, is to be equally disappointed. I want to believe that there's more, and that conflict actually can be a win-win for everyone, that people can have their needs met, that they can create change. But of course, many of these common patterns that we engage in don't help us towards the things that we want. And so here's something to think about that might help you begin changing the way you think about conflict, approach it, and then some of the options that you feel like you have available to you in handling it. And this didn't make any sense to me the first time I ran across it. But your conflicts aren't about what you think they're about. We frequently have these intense conflicts, but they are not addressing the actual issues at hand. They're surface level. And I'll help you with this by first asking you to identify some things that you really care about. Okay, so take a moment and write in the Mentee some of the things that you value most, that you treasure, that are precious to you, that you care about. Some excellent examples already. Independence. This is a fundamental face need. Face needs are an idea that was put together to describe how we want other people to see us. And independence is one of those fundamental face needs. We want other people to believe that we are capable of making our own decisions, that we're our own person. But we also have this fundamental face need of being likable, that other people see us as somebody that you want to connect with. We also want to be seen as competent, that we can do things. And I noticed family there. I've never seen anybody, as they do a list of values, not have some sort of relationship or connection that they value. It always shows up in the top 5. It's often number 1. Mm. So I'm seeing some really common themes here around connection, around our identity, around values, things that we think are important. And as I'm looking at this, it's a little tricky because it's all spinning around. But as I'm looking at it, I've noticed that I haven't yet seen dishes show up on the list. Do you see dishes on there? And I point that out because at USU, for example, they keep track of the types of conflicts that roommates have in the residence halls. And there's thousands of students there. And semester after semester, I bet you can guess what the number 1 source of conflict is, right? Dishes. It's over dishes. And it's not, this is a really relatable type of conflict. And I myself know a little bit about this because I've had 4 decades worth of conflicts over dishes. Starting when I was a little kid, I told you how many kids are in my family. Well, my mom's favorite joke, I hated this joke, when people would ask her, how many kids do you have? She would respond with, I have 8 dishwashers. Very funny, Mom. If dad jokes aren't funny, well, that's a mom joke, and that one is definitely not funny. So we didn't really eat out, didn't have a lot of money, and there weren't really any restaurants anyway in the small town. So if you can imagine dishes for up to 3 meals a day for 10 people, it's a lot of dishes. And I would argue and fight with my mom every single time she told me to do the dishes. Like, it's not my turn to do the dishes. I did it last time, or that's not fair. Or I traded with so-and-so. I would try to confuse my mother and make her think it wasn't my day. Or I would do things like purposefully doing them poorly. So maybe I wouldn't be asked to do them again, but no, I just have to try again. I sometimes hid dirty dishes in the oven, which I thought was a genius idea.
Of course.
It was next level avoidance, right? So I had just years of conflict with my mother over the dishes. And then I went to college and I roomed with my 3 best friends. And I thought, I certainly didn't expect that I would have any conflict over dishes, because not only was I rooming with my 3 best friends, but also we had lots of dishes. Lots of college kids are dish poor. They'll have like 1 bowl, 1 spoon, 1 fork, and a plate. And you're lucky if you got a toaster. Well, me and my roommates were dish rich because we worked at, I and one of my roommates worked at the DI for a couple of weeks before college, which is like a thrift store. And I want to talk about why it was only 2 weeks. That's a conflict for another day. But there were so many donations for dishes, they would often just have to cycle them through, and they were going to throw some out. So I was like, I'll take your unwanted dishes. So I went to college with 4 boxes full of dishes. They filled all of our cupboards. So when somebody wanted some Lucky Charms for breakfast, they'd get out a bowl and eat it, and then just stick the dirty bowl in the sink. And you could get out a new bowl on Tuesday morning. But of course, the one sink would fill up, and then the other sink would fill up. And now we're starting to get funky fermenting green Lucky Charm milk at the bottom of, of the sink. And now the dishes are starting to move out onto the countertops. And sometimes by Friday, I once saw one of my roommates eating Lucky Charms out of a mixing bowl with a wooden spoon and drinking Tang out of a mason jar, but nobody had washed a single dish, right? And we still had something to eat out of. But then they all went off for the weekend, went home to do laundry, get a decent meal or whatever, and left me behind with all the dishes because I was dating my future spouse. I wanted to spend time with her. But do you think she wants to come over to my apartment with the funky fermenting Lucky Charm milk and the half-eaten burritos on the countertop with congealed ketchup? Because my roommate, who's now the governor of Utah, thought that ketchup was an appropriate condiment for burritos. I don't think he like made that his political platform or anything like that. He might have much better taste now, but at the time, that's what he used, and that's what I was dealing with. This is the just wreckage that I'm trying to clean up after. And I'd spend a couple of hours on Saturday morning cleaning all these dishes, and then my roommates would come back and say nothing. They didn't say thank you. They didn't say anything, just got out another bowl and poured some Lucky Charms, right? So I ended up upset about that and having conflict with my roommates about the dishes. Eventually, I did marry my future spouse that I was dating at the time. And we wouldn't, of course, fight about dishes, right? Because we love each other. You know, I remember one time I did the dishes and I thought she would be really excited when she got home, but she looked at me and she looked in the kitchen, looked back at me. She's like, why didn't you finish the dishes? I'm like, I did all the dishes for you. And she's like, we didn't rinse out the sink. And apparently it doesn't even count. Like it doesn't count at all if you don't rinse out the sink afterwards. And if you know what I'm talking about, right? And now I've got 3 kids and an actual dishwasher. And guess who argues with me every single time I ask them to do the dishes and it's not my turn? And
your kids come full circle.
Yeah, full circle. And what is hard to recognize for many of us is that I've had these 40 years of dish conflicts, and it was never about the dishes. Not once. It's not about the dishes. It's trying to show me my conflicts. It's trying to show me what I care about. If you look at that list again of what you value, what you wrote down, these are the things that are going to be the sources of your conflict. When you feel like your independence is being threatened, when you feel like things are unjust, I'm reading some of the words up here. When you feel like things aren't equal, when you recognize that the world does not have peace, when there is something that you're concerned about with your family or your relationships, all of those things are going to be your sources of conflict. If you can recognize that is where they're coming from. Another way to think about this is if you'll show them this picture, Carlee, if you'll move ahead to the next slide. I wonder if a few of the folks will be able to recognize this. We saw some Harry Potter fans early on, right? So in chat, first one, if you know what this is. Yeah,
There it is.
I knew somebody was going to know. Excellent. Mayor of Erised. So if you look at this, to tell those who maybe don't know about Harry Potter quite as much, Harry's a wizard, right? And he's at this wizarding school called Hogwarts, and he's trying to solve this mystery. So he goes in one night to the library, to the restricted section where he's not supposed to be, because he needs to find out some information. He can try and solve this mystery. So he goes in with his invisibility cloak. Remember, magic is all over the place in this story, right? So he's got this invisibility cloak. He sneaks in there, and suddenly in comes the caretaker, and he's going to get caught. And he doesn't want to get caught and expelled. So he throws the cloak back on, rushes out of the room, and hides inside another side room. And in that room, he sees this mirror. When he walks up to it, he looks into it, and what he sees shocks him. He sees his mother and father who are dead. Sorry, spoiler alert if you haven't seen it. His parents were killed when he was just a young baby, and he sees them smiling at him. He's there with his parents, and he's just transfixed by this. He looks at it, and he wants somebody else to see it. So he throws back the cloak over his head, goes and gets his best friend, Ron. They come back, and he says, look, what do you see? Ron looks in the mirror, and he does not see Harry's dead parents. What he sees is himself holding up the Quidditch cup, and he's the best boy or the head boy or whatever they call it. And so he sees something different. If you look at the letters above the mirror, there's some things written there. It says, Erised stra eru oit ube katre oit on wosi, which unless you speak fluent Harry Potter doesn't mean anything, right? But of course, as some of you may have noticed, some people called it the mirror of desires, because when you hold up, letters or a book or something written in front of a mirror, it flips the image. So if you read the words above the mirror backwards and you realize that the spacing is off, it says, I show not your face, but your heart's desire. Erised backwards is desire. Conflict is trying to show you what you desire, what you care about most, what you want, what you hope to change. But it's tricky for us because things get flipped, right? Harry, even though he was looking at his parents, it wasn't necessarily his parents that he desired most, right? If you look at the themes of those books, it's about connection. And he desires that deeply. He didn't really have it with his parents. So you see how important his relationship is with Ron and Hermione and Dumbledore. Like, it's about connection. And if you look at what Ron saw, it's not necessarily about the Quidditch cup either. What Ron really wants is to be seen and recognized. He's the younger brother. His older twins get all the attention. And his best friend is the flippin' most known wizard in the world, right? He's Harry Potter. He's like the chosen one. And so he feels oftentimes invisible, like he's not seen. And our conflicts, all of them, are trying to show us what's important to us, if we can look and see it. So again, I go back to that earlier statement. Your conflicts aren't about what you think they're about. Mine weren't about the dishes. If I look back at when I was a kid, some of you might relate to this, but it might have been about something else for you. But for me, I was 10 years old and I didn't want to be told what to do. I want to be my own person, right? It was about independence, making my own choices. And I don't think it would have mattered what my parents asked me to do. I might have resisted. And so we're fighting about the dishes, but that's not really what's going on. And with my roommates, some of you might be able to guess what that was about for me, because it definitely wasn't about the dishes, because I even fixed the problem so that I didn't have to do the dishes anymore. I created the chore wheel, which I thought was brilliant, right? The chore wheel. You just have 4 different jobs around the apartment: kitchen boy, bathroom boy, garbage boy, living room boy. I thought, how genius, right? And you just rotate the wheel at midnight on every Sunday. And then I didn't have to do the dishes by myself anymore. Somebody else was doing them I was doing once every 4 weeks. But have you ever gotten exactly what you said you wanted from a conflict and still felt totally dissatisfied? That's because it wasn't about that thing, and it wasn't about the dishes for me. What it was really about was respect and my relationship with my roommates. I didn't think that friends did that to each other. You know, you don't leave all your stuff for me to clean up and then don't say anything to me. I felt disrespected. I didn't feel like our relationship was what it wanted. And I saw that. And this is why I was still dissatisfied with the chore wheel, is because they started making passive aggressive comments about the chore wheel. Like, oh, I guess it's time to clean the bathroom. I'm bathroom boy this week. And then one of the roommates was super passive aggressive and left 3 garbage bags just sitting around the garbage can until exactly 11:59 before he took them out. Nobody had ever done that before, but he was going to show me, I don't have to do what you told me to, because it's not about dishes for him either, or garbage. Maybe for him, it's about independence, not wanting to be told what to do. He's living away from home, and here I am making a chore wheel. And with my spouse, it wasn't about how I did the dishes. I just wanted to be liked no matter how I did it. And with my kids, it's definitely not about the dishes. I spend more time trying to get them to do them than if I did them myself, because it's about my identity as a father and wanting to teach them respect and responsibility. Like, that's what it's about. And when we can start seeing that, when you start seeing what your conflicts are actually about, then you can start creating the changes that you want for yourself. But you have to learn to talk about it differently. And this is not easy. Like, it's challenging to shift from what we're used to doing, all our patterns of conflict that might not be working, to try something new, try something counterintuitive. It feels a little bit like trying to learn a new language, and that is super challenging. I imagine some of you have done that before, learned a new language. So talk to me about some of the really distinct challenges there are of learning a new language. I saw up at the very top, failure. Yeah, like, you're going to make mistakes. When you start trying to do something new, you will absolutely make mistakes. And it's hard when you're trying to do something new for a good reason and it just doesn't go quite the way you wanted it to. There can be sometimes a temptation to just give up on it. But with a new language, if you give up on it, you're never going to be able to speak it, right? It takes this persistence among all the mistakes to keep getting up when you fall down. Feeling inept as you struggle with the basics. Yeah, like, you're doing all this mental work too, and trying to translate it from your native tongue into a new tongue and then back again. Like, that takes so much effort and energy, time, practice. These are all some really good answers. And it encapsulates how hard it is to do something counterintuitive and new like that. And we want to recognize that what we're offering you is not an easy fix. It's not a life hack. It's completely changing the way you think and engage in conflict. And that will be hard. I just want to recognize it for the challenge that it is, so that you can realize that if you're not good at it right away, that's okay. That's normal. It takes a lot of work. Like, I've put together this whole theory around how to do it differently. And it's my theory, and I can't do it all the time. Like, I had a conflict just last week with my oldest, my 15-year-old. It gave me a great opportunity to practice this stuff. And I didn't do it very well initially. I made some mistakes with it. I had to go back and try again. But it is possible. I have seen that I've been able to pick up and learn this new language. I've seen other people be able to do it too. I've really enjoyed, Carlee, watching the work you've done over a number of years in trying to capture and be able to do this new language. What's it been like for you, and what have been some of the things that have helped you or that you've experienced as you've tried to pick up this new language?
Yeah, well, I think what I learned from you first, and kind of what we've learned today, just kind of a recap. So we've been here for an hour. Here's some of the things that I heard or that I listened from you, Claire, just now, and then that I've also learned in my journey with this is that potentially the way that I was doing conflict was I was an avoider and accommodator, and those ways of doing conflict were not giving me what I wanted in my relationship. That was an awareness that if I keep avoiding, if I keep accommodating, I'm not going to resolve my conflicts. And so just that awareness of where are we and how are we currently engaging in conflict, and is how you're doing it working for you? That was a really great step for me to be able to stop and reflect on that. And I offer that to everyone listening today. Where are you in your conflicts, and how is what you're doing working for you? And do you want to do something differently? And then another thing I heard you say was that conflict, sometimes we get stuck in the outcomes of conflict, that it's about the dishes or it's about whatever it might be, the final product, but that really our conflicts are about much deeper issues. And if we only focus on just getting the dishes cleaned, we're potentially still going to be unsatisfied. And so another skill or another tool that we want to be able to use to do conflict differently is to say, I'm going to stop thinking about, is it about the dishes or what the outcomes are? And I'm instead going to get underneath it to these deeper values of what it really means and is really about for me. So then another tool and something that I wanted to share today that's been really useful for me. So Claire talked about learning a new language, and imagine now if I'm here to teach you a new language. I'm here to teach you Latin. We have 30 minutes left, and whatever skills, right, that I'd be able to teach you in that language, you're probably not going to be able to speak it fluently, but I'm going to give you a couple of skills that worked really well for me to get me started. It's one of many that Claire and I offer, and Claire and I have researched, but let's just start with one today so that you can take something, right? So we've done, what is my style? Am I focusing on my needs? So those are two things of how we can do conflict differently. And then this third one is kind of a tool or some engagement or some actual behaviors or patterns of thinking that we can change to help us do conflict a little differently. So at the beginning, I had everyone say what TV show you'd want to binge watch. And what's really interesting about shows and TV and Hollywood and the things that thrill us is that all of those things contain a few really unique yet common themes, right? There's suspense, there's uncertainty, right? Like, is Harry going to beat Dumbledore, right? Like, is the DeLorean going to make it back from the future, right? Are we going to get the ring to the mount, right? Like, are we going to get there, Frodo? Are we going to make it? There's suspense, there's uncertainty, there's unknown, there's little things happening here and there. There's lots happening. And sometimes that same energy can start to happen in our conflicts. And we have a word that we like to use to describe this. So let me just show you this now. And maybe you have experienced this in your conflicts. It's what we call drama, right? So drama is what makes these movies really great, right? And when I ask this question in my classes, like, who of you of my students like watching dramas on TV? And pretty much every hand is raised, like that's what makes the best television. Then I ask the same question up in fall and return, how many of you like it when your conflicts or when your life is full of drama? And usually there's not a single hand that is raised. So when you think about drama, let's do another Mentimeter survey. When you think about drama in your relationships, what are some of the words that come to your mind with drama in your relationships? If this is working. Here they come. Now, if any of you want to use, potentially more lofty language, there is a lock on my system that won't let you use any of those beautiful, upper level words. So frustrating, stressful, anxiety, misunderstanding, tiring, right? Like I think about drama in my relationships and I'm like, oh, I'm just done, right? That is how we feel about drama. So in the movie theaters, thrilling. In our relationships and in our conflicts, not so much. So drama then is something that's not working for us in our relationships. So then let's talk about if we are going to do conflict differently, we have to be able to freeze, zoom in on conflict and figure out what is happening. So let's get really clear. What is happening in our relationships when drama is present, right? So let's see. My mic fans. So in drama, there are three key players that we need, or three key roles that happen in order for drama to perpetuate, right? In order for the series to go and go and go until there's so many episodes, like in The Office, we're 10 seasons in, right? And the first is that we need someone who is our villain. And this villain, typically in most cases, is very powerful. They have this impotent, uncontrollable rage. They're vindictive and revengeful. They're morally bad and evil, right? Like they are the reason why all of this chaos is happening, right? Like, oh, you Voldemort, none of this, right, would be here if you weren't, how dare you, right? Like here is the villain that we're having. So there's a villain, someone who plays the villain. Then someone, if we're going to have a villain, there has to be someone there that is playing the victim, right? So the victim role then starts happening in our conflicts, right? Victims are the princesses, right? They're the innocent. They're blameless. They're helpless. They did nothing wrong. They were just going about their merry day. Frodo was just enjoying the nature around his hobbit, right? Like he loves the Shire. Like why would we need to change that? Poor innocent Frodo, right? They have no choices. Oftentimes they feel like they have no choices. They need saving. They can't save themselves. And one of the things that is really interesting about victims is that they get to have pity, right? They get this pseudo power or relief that everyone pities me. We begin to feel pity. So then our third role or character that we need in order to complete the drama triangle, which is what this is, that keeps our drama not triangular, but keeps it circular and going over and over, is our hero. So heroes are equally not as great, right? So sometimes when I teach this, my students think, oh yeah, no, I'm the hero. Well, hero has a few things wrong with them as well, right? Because they perpetuate drama. So a hero, we label them as morally good, that we adore them, they're altruistic, right? Like they're brave and they're strong, right? But part of what they also do is that they encourage victimization, right? Like, oh, don't you worry, let me just take control of that from you, victim. Like you can't handle what's happening here, so I am going to take care of this. Was it Lois Lane? Is she the one that always falls off the buildings with Superman, right? Like Lois, get it together, girl, stop falling off buildings, right? So a hero needs someone to capture, right, off a building. So how this then are the three kind of key components of keeping drama happening in our conflicts. And here's how it might show up, maybe more reality, right? So if we are playing the victim role, or we're working with people who are playing a victim role, that might look like we're seeking pity or sympathy from others. This might look like if you're talking to everyone else except the person that you're in the conflict with to get them onto your side, you might be playing the victim, right? You might be playing the role or perpetuating drama. If you are painting other people as victims, right, to help you get more of a pity card, that is a way, some behaviors that might be showing you or that you are doing or others are doing to perpetuate drama and to stay in drama. And then also as a victim, it can feel kind of hopeless, kind of powerless, like you don't feel like you have a lot of choices. Sometimes villains really are scary. Sometimes people who play villainous roles potentially in our lives can leave us feeling hopeless or powerless. And again, there are real villains, there are real victims, and there are real heroes in life. What we're talking about here is playing roles to somehow earn pity or to get a payoff, which we'll talk about in just a minute. So how it might look for the villain then, right? So a villain, they want revenge. They want to get even, right? So if you are in a conflict and you're like, oh, really? Well, let me show you, right? I will show you that you are going to miss me. You're going to miss me when I'm gone, right? So let me just make this harder for you because you deserve this. How dare you, right? I'll be the bad guy, or I'll show you, right? We want some sort of revenge. If we're starting to feel that, you might be able to diagnose that you're in drama. So then we and others might play the role of the hero, right? Do you have those people in your life, or maybe you are this person who kind of gets their fingers in other people's conflicts, right? So sometimes we get involved in conflicts that aren't ours. I had a woman in my neighborhood call me last week and be like, there's this boy who's hurting this other boy at school, and I want to call you to talk about what's happening. And I was like, why would you call me? Like, I'm so sad that's happening. Call the principal, call the mom, like don't bring me into this drama, please. Like, I don't want to hero up and save any, right? This isn't mine to own. So the hero doesn't let people solve their own conflicts. If you feel like you need to jump in and fix and save, that people don't have the capability, you might be trying to control the situation. Those are all behaviors that are potentially leading you towards, or that you can use to diagnose, am I perpetuating drama? And what's really interesting is that all these characters need each other in order to thrive, right? So in order for me to keep feeling pity from everyone and playing the victim, I need the villain to stay being mean to me, right? And if I want to feel good about saving everyone, then I still need people to like do stuff wrong that need to be saved, right? And so everyone needs each other, which is why it circles. And one thing that's interesting is that if we aren't getting what we want as, say, the victim, then we might just switch roles and become the villain. Whatever role we need to take so that we don't have to do this one thing, which is what all of these have in common. And that is justification. Is that no one, the victim, the villain, the hero, no one is taking ownership for anything that's theirs. They're no fault. No one has fault. Well, it's the victim's fault because they're making me mad. What's the villain's fault, right? Well, it's the villain's fault that I have to be the hero, right? So no one's taking ownership. It's all fault. I'm blameless, right? And because it's not my fault and I'm blameless, I don't have to change. I'm doing nothing wrong. And so in our conflicts, how that gets us, we get stuck in the drama triangle or in drama because we are not able to know, or we're not capable to take ownership for what is actually ours to own. And we get stuck in justification. So if you're seeing this in your relationships, both from other people and in yourself, then a tool, right? If you can begin to diagnose this, that this is happening for you, amazing. That's the first crucial step to speaking a different language in conflict. So then what you would then do, right? We have to get out of drama completely in order to do it differently. And how we do that, oh, this was something I added, got to get out of it, is ownership. We need to be able to take correct accountability for what's ours in a conflict and what is not ours in a conflict. So let's get clear on what we mean here. So in a conflict, we have to be able to own our emotions, and we don't own someone else's emotions, right? So in ownership work, there's two key components here. I'm going to pick up what's mine, and I'm not going to pick up what's not mine. And so one of the things, again, we have to pick up is our emotions, that this happening, I cared about something and it caused an emotional reaction in me. And maybe how I reacted to those emotions, I have to own, right? I also have to own what my values and my needs and my desires are. I have to own that it's important to me that I care about these things and it's bringing up conflict for me. Another thing that we need to own, that's ours to own, are our boundaries. Do we know what they are? And did we express them in this conflict? When I was a landlord, I had a tenant who wasn't allowed to have a dog. I don't have dogs because dogs and tenants just don't work, right? But she convinced me to do it otherwise. And we had lots of problems. And that's because I wasn't clear on what my boundaries were with having a dog or not having a dog in the apartment, right? So I have to own that I didn't express to her, I didn't know or express what my boundaries were to her. I have to own that if I'm in a conflict with that. You also have to own your contributions, both what you did do and what you didn't do, right? So we might have some conflicts that are like, you know, I saw this happening and I said nothing, and I have to own that, right? I saw spouse, husband, coworker, friend, I saw that you were suffering and I said nothing. So I have to own that, right? And so we have to own our contributions, and we have to then not own others' contributions, right? I can't control these things in other people, which means I can't own them. I can't take accountability for them. And that's a skill in of itself, is saying, I'm not going to take accountability for things that are not mine. Pick up. Then a last one is that we have to own our thoughts, right? I thought about doing this, or the story that I was telling myself that got me in trouble was this. And so we have to be able to own and not own, be able to discern what are mine to own and what's not mine to own in a conflict, right? Imagine if, like, you know, Voldemort was like, you know, Harry, actually, I'd really like to own all these emotions that I'm feeling about me not being able to kill you. And gosh, it's just my desire to take over the world. And really, like, you were just doing your best. Like, you were just this kid that was there, right? So, like, I just want to own that, like, I really wanted to kill you. And, you know, sorry, man, right? Like if that happened in the movies, the movie would end. There'd be no drama. And that's what happens in our conflicts, right? If the drama, right, when the drama ends, right, we're able to do our conflicts differently. So what this might look like for you. So if you're diagnosing that you're in drama, here are some things that you can do. You can begin to own all those things we just mentioned: your emotions, boundaries, thoughts, contributions, values, needs, desires. But then you might also begin to ask yourself some of these questions. How did I get to this place in my conflict? How did I get here? Like, how did I get to this place? How did we get to screaming and yelling at each other as partners before we're going to bed? How did we get here? Another question you might ask, right, are all of these: what are my needs, boundaries, contributions, thoughts? What's not mine to own? And what do I have the power to change about myself? What is within my control? Okay, now I want to give you all a chance to practice this skill of taking ownership. So I want you to think about a current conflict that you're experiencing in your life. And of those things that we just talked about, let's see if you can practice owning some things in your conflicts. Now, I wonder if a lot of you were like jumping at the bit, right, to answer like that, this is my favorite movie, or this is what I care about, or this is what, you know, those were really fun ones. This question is asking you to get a little uncomfortable and potentially take some ownership for things that you're doing to perpetuate your conflicts, or that are causing the conflicts to be there, or what's yours to own. So these things that are coming in, these are really courageous, right? Like, your name isn't attached to any of these, but these are really courageous statements that we would then share, or that you would then potentially share with the person who you're in conflict with. Defensiveness. I have to own my own defensiveness. I love that. My frustrations have been unfairly projected. I play the villain sometimes. I can't change others. I don't need to own others' guilt. Not owning their emotions. I don't have to own others' mistakes. Hey, so look at this one. I want to feel respected. That's a really great thing to own, right? That's a need. That's a value. Recognize that I'm not imperfect. These are great. I have to own that I want to ask for a candid conversation. I have to own not speaking up when needed and keeping my feelings hidden. Those are all beautiful. These are beautiful. But then potentially taking this one step forward is having engaged in that, offering you then the courageous question of, is there anyone in your conflict who needs to hear what you just owned? And what's really interesting is that taking ownership, choosing not to be in drama and taking ownership allows us some really awesome gifts. We get to feel empowered. We get to feel like we have choices and options that are offered to us. We also get to show people that I'm not going to blame you or find fault, right? We offer to them the gift of competency. And then we facilitate, when we take ownership, all of a sudden cooperation. I want to cooperate with people who take ownership of their stuff. So if someone comes to me and is like, hey, Carlee, we were in a conversation the other day and I said these things and that's not actually how I felt. And that wasn't actually appropriate. Or I didn't actually mention that this is what I really needed. And so I just want to own that. All of a sudden, whatever conflict I'm having with that person, I am like 100% more willing to cooperate with them when people are taking ownership of things in their lives. And so there are really beautiful gifts that come from taking ownership. And these are the gifts that fuel doing the hard work of taking ownership of what's yours. So Claire, we've talked about a lot today. Impact has all of this had for you?
It's been nothing short of transformative for me in my relationships in my life. It's why I'm so grateful for this opportunity to share it with all of you. I'm really grateful to Susan and the Women's Leadership Project and giving us an opportunity to come and share some of the things we've learned, because it truly has completely changed the way I engage in my conflicts and therefore changed my relationships. And it's opened up so many beautiful gifts for me that I no longer handle things the way that I did. I don't avoid all the time, and I'm not as defensive all the time. Now I'm still learning a new language, so I make those mistakes, but it has opened up so many opportunities, and I'm just really grateful to be able to share it with others. Where can people go, Carlee, to get more resources?
Yeah, so just a couple of resources that we want to offer you, and Susan might talk a little bit about this, but the Utah Women in Leadership Project have a free course that we've collaborated on to offer to anyone who wants to take it for free. Claire has and Susan talk more about this, and Claire has a TEDx talk that he's done that you can find online and search for. And then Claire and I also have, we offer a course to the community, which it's a virtual course to the community. So pretty much anyone all over the world can take a course from us where we talk more about a lot of these skills and strategies with doing conflict differently.
Thank you. Yeah, in terms of the course, it's a 3-hour course that some of a few of the wonderful students that Claire and Carlee have taught in past years have helped put that together, and it's almost ready to launch in the next couple of weeks. So really bringing it in, I think, and putting the model really clearly. And I actually looked at it for a while this morning, so it's going to be really exciting. So, and it is, that course is going to be 3 hours with 3 modules with reflection work and guides and all of that. And that course is going to be $20. It costs us money to put on courses, but still we tried to have it very reasonable.
Just reduced, very reasonable. Good, thank you. Good correction there. So Susan, I don't know, we've got 6 minutes left. I'm not sure if there's any Q&A that you wanted us to have, and we're happy to stick around afterwards if people have that, but.
Yeah, there's a number of different questions that had come that way. Some of them are a little bit older, and some of them have, one of them that I've seen a couple of different things too is in terms of, those steps that you outlined. Well, one of them says, can you name the 3 question skills again?
Yeah.
Yeah. Would you do that? I think that's an important one.
Let's see. Let me know what one you're talking about.
That's the only one. I know it was a little while back.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure. Oh, here's another question. I think this
Okay.
is interesting. How does the 3-role framework play out if there's 2 people in the situation? That's a good one. Instead of 3 roles, does someone pick up 2 of them?
Whatever you need to keep drama going, yes. And here's what's great about the drama triangle is that we can be fluid, right? Like I can be the victim, hero, and villain all at the same time, right? All in one day, right? We can like, whatever I need, right? The idea is I will use whichever corner of the triangle I need to avoid taking ownership at all costs, to avoid having any fault, avoid taking any blame, so that none of it is ever my fault. So yeah, it doesn't have to be 3 distinct roles, right? Like it can just blend and go wherever it needs to, as long as it keeps you confused and like emotional and like overwhelmed and like feeling justified and not taking ownership for your stuff. Then it's doing what it's meant to do, whether there's 1 player or 3. I don't know, Claire, if you have anything else you would
So
offer
that
on that.
ownership.
No, I'm just
that
responding
ownership
to a
piece-
few chat questions. So.
Oh.
That ownership piece sounds like it's just so important in what you're talking about.
Yeah.
You just probably can't move forward unless you really take ownership for your piece, right?
Yeah. And not only like, right, because it's hard to take ownership right, for 2 reasons. Number 1, we don't know what to take ownership for, which we talked about today. And then number 2, it is just hard to go to someone and say, hey, I need to own that I kind of wasn't playing at my best level here, that like I went against some of my values, or I wasn't firing on all cylinders, or I'm not as capable potentially as I thought I was. Like that's super vulnerable. And so like that's also a big barrier of how do I express this and deal with potentially the emotions that come up with me and might happen for others when I'm taking ownership for stuff.
I love that. So any other, I've just got a minute or 2. I need to make some announcements right at the end, but any other like tools that you can suggest? One thing I don't know. I mean, is there a tool that you have or is online right at the first, am I an accommodator? Am I this? Am I that? So do you have a tool that you would recommend?
Yeah. So we have, Claire, I'm thinking this, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we have a couple of resources that we can send out that will help give people more tools, help them be able to speak the language, potentially some paper dictionaries to speaking this new language of conflict in a different way, that we can send those out. And then the course, the $20 course that you're offering, we collaborated with some students in our organization to help build that. That's a 3-module course. And so that's going to be something that people can use as a resource to keep practicing this language, diving more into offering that. And then if people are just like really gung-ho, they want to learn the entire language, Claire and I are available to do whatever types of trainings people might need to be able to share this. Basically, we teach this in the classes that we teach at Utah State University. And so we realize that what we teach is really useful. Our students really find it useful, but people can't really access us unless they're students on campus. And so we want to make ourselves available to people to do trainings or one-on-ones or whatever they might need to help them with resources. And so they can connect with us that way too.
Thank you so much to both of you for joining us today. I would like to thank our sponsors as well, the Utah Education Network, UEN, the John M. Huntsman School of Business and Extension, both at Utah State University, for making this event possible. Thanks again to all of you for joining us today. Have a wonderful day.